Very, very warm welcome to all of you. We are meeting at Right Circle, I think, after March. So it gives me immense pleasure that Anurag got in touch with us and Prabha Khaitan Foundation also got in touch with us to rekindle right Circle, because I think we were all missing being here together and meeting different authors and coming to know what makes them tick. So, I've lost count of the Right Circle episodes, but yes, presented by She Cement in association with Prabha Khaitan Foundation, Ehsaas Women and Spagia Foundation. We have with us today a very, very special writer. His repertoire of writing is varied, I would say. And Anurag is an alumnus of the Indian School of Business. But I think what's most important in his profile is he calls himself a very keen observer of people. Until you don't observe people, you can't write. So that's amazing. This is his third book, what we are going to be talking about today, apart from his first two books, which one of them was also nominated for the Raymond Crossword Book Awards in 2017. The Goa Gambit is just his third book, and I'm sure he has plenty of churning going on in his writerly mind. But good to have you with us, Anurag. Thank you for joining us. And we have one of our very own. Makes me really, really proud to have Tusharika Singh moderate the conversation with Anurag. Tusharika, well, we've seen her grow up, so I really don't want to get into giving anything else about her, but yes, she is a marketing and communication specialist. She's a budding writer. She's writing her own columns. It just makes us very, very proud to see one of our Jaipur girls sparkle so brightly. So with that, I'm going to welcome both of you on stage. House rules, please keep your phones on silent. Where's the energy, guys? What's happening to you people today? You wait for me to say this. No, you need to do better, guys. We've come back to Right Circle after so long. I need a little more applause for our writer and our moderator. Thank you so much. There is a row empty in the front in case somebody wants to move up. 3 people can move up. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mita, for that lovely introduction. And hi, Anurag. While I'm very excited to straight dive into this session with you, but before we begin, I would like to share my experience of reading your book. You know, it happened after a very long time that I finished a book in 4 hours straight. And I think in today's age where we're not even able to watch a movie on Netflix without looking at our phones, to be able to get a reader's attention for 4 hours, and not just get the reader's attention, but also to keep them on the edge of their seat through the entire time, I think it's a commendable feat. So congratulations on writing such a captivating thriller. And I'm sure after the session, when the audience reads it, they will resonate with my views.
Thank you.
So the Goa Gambit, it deals with the gambling scene in Goa. So, you know, when I think of the word gambling, or when somebody mentions casino to me, the first image that comes to my mind is of a very suave and elegantly dressed Daniel Craig in James Bond's Casino Royale. And, you know, dressed in a black tuxedo, sipping his martini, in control of his game. But when I read your book, it revealed a very fascinating insight, where you mentioned that the customer base of most of the casinos in Goa is actually made up of the farmers from northern India. And you happened to meet one such farmer on a flight to Goa. And I think that time, it was the 16th time that year he was going to Goa, and only to gamble. So I found it to be a very interesting example. So that actually also led to the writing of this book, and one of the characters is also based on him. So if you could please share that encounter that you had with that man, which eventually inspired you to write on such an uncommon topic.
Yeah, sure. So this was in 2016. I was on a flight to Goa, and there was this boy who was sitting next to me in his mid-20s. And he stood out in the crowd in the sense that I think we were all wearing shorts and a t-shirt, and he was wearing a pair of jeans, a shirt with flip-flops. And unlike any of us, he was actually carrying a man purse and had no luggage on him. So he was sitting next to me, so I found him very intriguing. I asked my wife to take the corner seat, and I actually sat in the middle, which I never do, just to talk to him. And as we began talking to each other, I found out that he was a compulsive gambler. And he was carrying 2 lakh rupees in that man purse with him, which he showed me. And this was, as Tusharika mentioned, his 16th trip that year. So I asked him, what do you do? I mean, where are you from, and how did you come across the casinos in Goa? And then I found out that he was actually a farmer from a village on the suburbs of Delhi NCR. And they had sold their land to one of the land developers, and they had come in the money. And not only him, actually his entire village had come in the money. Everybody had sold their land holdings. And as happens with poor people don't know how to save because they never had money to save. But spending comes naturally to them because they've made sacrifices their entire life. Not being able to do something because you don't have the money. So suddenly these farmers had 5-10 crores to spare. I'm talking about 2016. And they didn't know what to do with it. So they went on a spending spree. So everybody in the village was wearing a Rolex. There was a Pajero standing outside their house. Mud houses had broken down, and concrete structures had come up. They didn't have roads, but it didn't matter. Pajeros were there. They didn't know how to drive, but it didn't matter. The vehicle was there. And I think somewhere around 6-8 months when this spending spree began, word reached the casinos in Goa that there were these villages which had come big money. So they sent these casino agents to these villages. They said, before these buggers run out of money, okay, let us also take a part of it. So these casino agents land up in Goa and they identify the village seniors and they take them on a junket to Goa. Tickets paid, hotel paid for. Now these farmers had no source of entertainment. I mean, probably a dilapidated movie hall somewhere in the village. The odd mujra dance, when a wedding happens. And suddenly they were thrown in these casinos with belly dancers and booze flowing all the time, and women and gambling. The 3 vices which have corrupted, I think, men and gods alike. So these poor farmers, what defense did they have? So they went there, they come back, and then they start orating these stories of conquest that they have done in Goa. And the next week, 15 people went. And so the story begins that within a month and a half, the entire village was traveling to Goa on the weekends to play at the casinos. All the men. The women folk were back home, but all the men were going. As these agents went to one village ran out of money. Like a termite, they went to the second village, the third village, and so on. And so there's a region there. The entire region is now compulsive gamblers. They hooked on to prostitution, gambling, and alcoholism. And that day in the flight, there were 40 other farmers from his village going to Goa. So I heard this story. It was a fabulous story. It got me hooked on. And when I landed in Goa, I made it a point to visit some of the casinos to check it out. And I found, if any of you have been to the casinos, you will find around 20-25% of the people on the casino floor are North Indian farmers. So they still visit. That means they still haven't run out of the money, but yeah, let's see how long that lasts. So this was basically the starting point of the Goa Gambit.
Right. And the man that you met is actually one of the characters in your book, Balwan.
Yes.
So talking about the characters in your book, you have around 11 people, 11 characters in that book.
Right.
And the protagonist, Jayesh Shah, who is managing all these casinos, is an ace poker player himself.
Right.
He's known as the czar of the casinos in Goa, but in reality, he's a puppet in the hands of Pankaj Adhikari, who's the antagonist. He's a seasoned politician, and he's in fact at the forefront of all agitations that are being led against casinos because they lead to alcoholism, they lead to drugs, they lead to prostitution. But in reality, he is the one who actually owns these casinos.
Right.
And then you have a very interesting character called Ruby, who's a lady boy from Thailand who's employed in the casino, but the customers don't know that she's lady boy. So each of these characters is very distinct, very complex, and they leave a mark on the mind of the reader. Like each one of them, you also have a fading scandalous Bollywood star, you have a woman journalist who's trying to secure a scoop in the casino. So all of these characters really leave a strong impression on the mind of the reader. I really want to know, how do you sketch these characters? Like you mentioned, you met this person on the flight, so of course you encounter people in real life based on that, but I'm sure you also add a bit of your own touch, a product of your imagination. So how do you blend the two?
So I think people like the characters I write, and the characters are unique because I write flawed characters. I sincerely believe we live in a world which is imperfect. And I think it is the acceptance of imperfection. My characters are grey, they are not black and white. Based on circumstances and stimuli, they behave in a particular fashion. I also come from the school which believes that nobody is born evil. It's the circumstances that shape people and how they come out. So that's what you see in my characters. And I've said this in earlier podcasts that I don't write fairy tales because my characters are all grey. There's actually not much difference from the protagonist and the nemesis. I fight for both of them because both of them have their own circumstances which have molded them to be the way they are. Coming back to how I sketch these characters, I think these characters are to a very large extent based on my own life experiences because I research thoroughly my novels. So to give you an example, I must have visited 10 different casinos in the world when I was writing this novel, and I have interviewed more than almost 100 people to sketch these characters. People from all walks of life, people who have worked at the casino, high rollers, people who have played at the casino, people in the periphery who are invested in this industry, and so on. So there are three sources of information. One is obviously based on your own experience when you're there. The second is when you meet these people, they tell you their own stories. And then a good writer makes them his own story. So you play on that story and you highlight some aspects and you change some aspects. And after a point in time, very frankly with me, I don't even remember whether it is my story or somebody else's story. In fact, I've had moments with my friends where I have narrated their story back to them to be told that this was my story and I had forgotten about it. So that's the second source. And the third source obviously is you read up a lot. You read up, a lot of non-fiction and fiction both which has been written on the subject. You watch movies for ideas and things like that. And then you create these characters. I think in this novel, 3 characters are based on real life people verbatim, with a little twist here and there. I think the remaining 9 characters are a work of imagination based on cherry-picked attributes of different people that I've met in the industry. And that's what you see in the novel.
One of the characters that really stands out in your book is of Ruby, who's the lady boy from Thailand. And I heard in one of your interviews that you actually hired 4 or 5 lady boys in Thailand while doing your research for writing that character. So I'm sure that must have been a very interesting time for you. So can you share any anecdotes or stories from your interaction with them?
Sure. That was the last time I went to Thailand without my wife. So that's the first thing I want to tell you. Yeah. So, I hired a few lady boys to sit and talk with them. And First of all, who are ladyboys? So you have gay males, these are men who like other men, and a small percentage of gay males, when they are 5 or 6 years old, come to realize that they like other men because they themselves think that they are a woman. That is what a ladyboy is. Ladyboy is a person who feels trapped in the body of a man, trapped in an alien body, because the person thinks that she is a woman. So I'm using the word she here. And they find a voice in Thailand because in the rural areas in Thailand, they are Buddhist culture. In Buddhist culture, they recognize 3 sexes. So somewhere they have wider acceptance. I think the world over, if this is a phenomenon, then this trait exists everywhere, except that it doesn't find a voice. So it doesn't exist in India, for example. But I guess they are there. And they have been unfortunately exploited in the sex industry in Thailand. In Thailand, the going goes that if you see a beautiful woman who's more than 5'6", then she's a ladyboy. And they really go to a large, extreme extent to try and look like a woman, a very beautiful woman, and to a very large extent they are successful. Now within this community, there are 2 things that I found very interesting. One was their self-conviction that when they were soliciting in the market, real women did not stand a chance in front of them. The self-conviction. Why? And I asked them why, and this came across all of them. It wasn't one person saying so. And she said, because, my want to be a woman is so strong. The women don't realize what they have, but I do. And I go that extra extent to basically win the customer vis-a-vis the other crowd. And the second aspect was that they were always wanting love, which they never got. They were exploited for their bodies, but they never got love. So there were these 2 traits which were very strongly suggested by all of them. Within the ladyboy community, they have the haves and the have-nots, and the big distinction is the ladyboys who are able to eventually undergo a reassignment surgery for the genitalia. So that's like the epitome of climbing Mount Everest for them. So these were the 3 aspects that were notable in my interactions with them, and I tried to bring it forth in the character Ruby that plays a role in the novel. She runs the escort service at the casino. She's a ladyboy and nobody knows about it. And the fact that she falls in love with one of the customers, but she doesn't know how to come to terms with him and tell him that she's actually a ladyboy.
So you clearly have a knack for storytelling. I could see that in your book and also now while we're talking. And you've dedicated this book to your father, who you say is the original storyteller of your family. So how much of your storytelling ability do you attribute to your genes, your inheritance? And you have also done a course in creative writing and screenwriting. So how did that help to hone that skill?
So in my family we are all storytellers, and when I was young I used to see my dad. He saw the same, the facts were the same, they played out in front of us. But the way he would narrate it to people, he could gather an audience and speak, and I think some aspects were exaggerated to make it sound interesting, a little bit of half-truths, but that was a knack which I grew up watching. It is basically making daily mundane matters sound interesting and intriguing. That's what storytelling is all about. We see them in front of us, but when you meet a good storyteller, he can pull a twist on what you saw was a very regular, boring, day-to-day, And I grew up seeing that, and I think it runs in our blood. The interesting bit is when me, my father, and even my brother-in-law, he's a great storyteller as well. We sit in the same room, and everybody wants to talk and nobody wants to listen because we are all storytellers. So I come from that family, and that's why the novel is dedicated to my father as the original storyteller in our house. And coming back to the course, I've done 2 courses. I've done one from University of Oxford, which is on advanced creative writing, and I have done another one on screenwriting with Aaron Sorkin's. Basically, these courses give you a framework. So you have a storyteller running inside you, but then you need a framework, somebody to tow you down, somebody to tell you how to write the three-act structure of drama, which basically with the beginning, the middle, and the end. And I found when I was writing the first novel that while I was good at storytelling and writing the characters, but the characters had taken a life of their own and they were running in different directions. And I was finding it difficult to tow them down. So that was a time when I actually did this advanced creative writing course, and it helped me write tighter plots. It helped me ensure that I knew how the arc of the characters was running. And if you see in the Goa Gambit, actually, I'm very pleased that all the characters end their arcs, which is quite significant when you're writing 11, 12 characters in a 200 and 300 page novel. For all the arcs to be finished, whatever they were aspiring in life. So I think that comes a bit from the courses that I've done. Having said that, I must also mention that when you do too much of study theoretical this thing, somewhere it kills the flair also a bit, because you get towed down by the rules. So I think I try and break the rules sometime, because once you've read the three-act structure, like I have, unfortunately now most of the movies I watch, by interval I know what's going to happen. So I don't enjoy them anymore. So to that extent, I think it's important also to play with the rules a little bit, to just keep the audience guessing. And as far as the final flip in the novel is concerned, for me, let me tell you, I sit down in a room and the first 6-8 ideas which come, I throw them out of the window. That's how you come up with a flip which hopefully nobody suspects. So yeah, that's about the writing.
I think that's some great insight for all the writers in the room. So the Goa Gambit has politics, it has violence, it has money, gambling, prostitution, kinky sex. I think these are all the perfect ingredients for a show on the OTT or a Bollywood thriller. Do you have any such thing on the cards?
So unfortunately, I've been a little unlucky on this. My first two novels were also picked up by production houses and they've been shown around. Somebody has actually lost money on them in the sense that they made a pilot, but they were never green light. So I'm hoping that someday they'll be picked up again. And the Goa Gambit actually was seen even before publishing it. It was picked up by Tulsi Pictures, the people who made Sacred Games in Mirzapur. And yeah, they saw it very closely. But maybe on a later date. Because yeah, we don't have anything on the table right now. I must say this aspect that for a fiction writer like we are, fiction unfortunately is a declining market in India. I'm very pleased there are so many people sitting here. But to sell a fiction novel is difficult, especially after OTT platforms have taken over. I remember when I wrote my first novel in 2016, it was a different market. And then in 2017-18, as OTTs became popular in India, to sell novels is very, very difficult now. A bestseller is 10,000 novels. If you sell 10,000 novels, you're a bestseller in India. And it takes a Herculean task to do that. Very difficult. But if you get picked up by a Netflix or an Amazon, one episode is watched by 5 million people. 10,000 to 5 million. That's the road to discovery. So I can tell you in this room that every fiction writer in the country today is trying to back that deal. Because that's the road to discovery now. That's the new reality. And I hope I'm lucky someday and this gets picked up.
I'm sure. So since you also mentioned your earlier works, your first book was on the art market, and your second book, The Lal Street, was on the stock market. Your third book is on the gambling scene. Now these are all very uncommon topics and very distinct topics, but they all have a commonality in them, which is money. And you worked as an investment banker, so you have seen money very closely. So how much of it does it stem from your professional experience, and how do you see money, the human psyche and its relationship with money?
I think greed and money is a very strong motivation. we've been taught when we were kids that being greedy and being selfish is a sin. But the fact is that for how many millennials, right? 2000 years, it still exists. And I think it's a very strong motivator. I think it is a part of our genes, actually. There's this Maslow's theory of hierarchy, where you have 5 stages. The first 4 stages of Maslow's theory of hierarchy are actually what we call deprivation stages. They arise because of deficit of ego, of money, of social needs, or basically security, basic security needs, right? So long as this deficit is not fulfilled, you cannot reach the 5th stage, which is self-actualization. But when you reach the stage of self-actualization, you basically deal with something very different, which is existential anxiety, because now you have achieved everything that you set out to achieve. So greed actually helps you not to face existential crisis in your life. Because so the time you keep chasing something, you don't feel anxiety. Why am I in this world? The big questions. The day you stop chasing because you think you've achieved everything, that's when the real problem starts. Because you have an empty mind, which gives rise to a lot of problems, basically, dealing with what is my purpose in life and things like that. So greed, money, because you're chasing it, I think is helping you keep you away from that. So I think money is very important in our life. Greed is very important in our life. The thing is that we have a reptilian mind, which basically takes us back to our basic animal instincts. And then from being a hunter and gatherer, we started living in a social setup. So we created these societal norms where we try to control these animal instincts. Greed is one of those innate instincts in us. It's very difficult to control it, but we want to control it. So we make it sound morally incorrect. We tell you that it's not right. But the fact of the matter is that greed is a reason for our survival. It's a very strong innate need in us. And I like to write about it because the fact of the matter is that it is society trying to control it, which is the reason that you have these moral dilemmas in your life. You actually think you've done something wrong when actually you're doing something which is part of your genetic makeup. I try and bring out these dilemmas in all my novels when basically greed, money, and ambition collide, and the moral dilemma that it gives rise to. And that's what you see in all of them. And I think the reason that you find the characters as being unique and something that influence you is because we all relate to those characters, part of those characters, because that's who we are. So I have seen this very closely because of my professional experience as a money manager, a tax consultant, and a money manager running an equity broking house and investment banking. So I dealt with a lot of money, both retail and institutional in my life. And I still deal with a lot of money as a professional investor now. And I have seen how money is important in our lives and how people chase money. And I think that's the reason I explore greed and ambition in all my novels. That's the commonality that runs through in all my novels, even though they have been written on different industries. So yes, if you are greedy, then I don't think it is a bad thing. I think it's something that is essential for your survival, and I think you should sleep well with that, despite the moral dilemmas it gives rise to. Yeah.
So will we also get to see this common theme in your next book? What are you working on next?
Frankly, I am contemplating moving away from the thriller genre going forward. I was very confused last couple of months. I did evaluate a few other options on the thriller side. So in my interviews before, last couple of months, I've given varied answers to this question. But I think I know now what I'm going to do, and it is to move away from thriller as a genre. I am exploring a story of basically a life journey, a self-discovery at the moment, and I hope to begin writing sometime in January once this last round of book promotion of Goa Gambit is over.
I don't think, but you should stop writing thrillers. So, since you mentioned that you will begin writing your next book in January, since you have promotions right now, we talked about your craft, your skill of writing, but what is your process of writing? So, when do you write between all the promotions, all these events that are happening? When do you actually sit down to write?
So I have a fur baby. We don't have kids, but we have a fur baby, and he wakes me up at 5:30 in the morning every day. And I take him for a walk, and by around 6:30, 6:45, I had my cup of coffee and I'm back home. And 7, I sit down and write. I write till noon. 5 hours at a stretch. I have a simple goal. I want to write at least 500 words every day. Once I have written that, the Indian market actually opens at 11:45 Singapore time. So I sit in the market and I punt and eat my lunch. I take a snooze, and around 4:35 I sit down to review what I have written. And if I have a good day, then out of the 500 words I've written, probably around 150, 200 words stay. The rest I removed. This is my writing process. I do this 15 to 18 months on a stretch to bring out one of these novels. Then they go to my editor, who spends another 4 or 5 months on it. And then we actually go to the publisher, who spends another year on it. And then you see it in front of you.
And do you ever face a writer's block?
Yeah, I think we all face a writer's block, and when you face a writer's block, you have to completely disengage and do something very different. Maybe I enjoy doing solo travels, and I usually do them when I have a writer's block. Just be with myself for some time. Yeah, switch off your phone, disconnect from the world, and we all do it. But I have found that if you try and engage on something else other than writing, then you basically, in a week, 15 days, 1 month, you come back and you start writing. Actually, what happens when you are writing a novel, the characters in the novel chase you. There are times when I can't sleep in the night. And I have an interesting methodology. I don't write the plot as such. I actually write the characters first. And I know broadly where they're going to stand in the plot. So my wife deals with me becoming a ladyboy 1 month, and the next month, I'm the protagonist of the novel, and so on, and then the politician. Because when I write those characters, I really get inside them. I try and play those characters. And you will see me in my house walking and talking to myself, and my dog running behind me and barking. And I'm in my own world at that point in time, completely engaged somewhere on a ship in Goa, playing one of the characters, which I'm writing at that moment, to basically describe. And I'm a very visual person. I see the stories. I actually see snippets. I see images, and then I write those images down. So you'll see the novel is very visual. That's the reason people come back and say that hopefully it can be made into a movie or an OTT, because it's very visual. Because that's my style of writing. I actually see the image before I write it down. And that's the process. Yeah.
So before we open the house to questions, a last question, since your book is related to gambling, and you also mentioned that you visited some 100 casinos while researching for this book. 10 casinos.
Yeah.
So you visited casinos across the globe and in Goa. And how do you see the casinos in India vis-a-vis across the globe? Since in India there are only 3 places, I believe, where gambling is legal.
So, in India, gambling is legal in Daman, Diu, Goa, and Sikkim. And it's a state license. But even in these places, I think gambling on land is not allowed, if I'm not mistaken. Live gambling is not allowed on land. So that's the reason for these ships to be moored in the water next to Goa, where live gambling is allowed. You see electronic gambling on land, basically. So, so I have been to casinos in Vegas. I have been to a casino in Deauville, which is one of the oldest casinos in the world. Monaco, Cairo, the ones in Goa. I haven't been to Sikkim, Nepal, in Kathmandu, Colombo, Genting, Singapore, Macau. So I have been to plenty of them. And let me tell you, there are broadly two kinds of casinos in this world. They are the casinos which are not gambling dens but entertainment destinations. These are casinos which appeal to social gamblers, not compulsive gamblers. Any one of us can be a social gambler. If you're intrigued by a casino, you're in Goa, you go there. A social gambler is a person who goes to a casino to have a good time. Of course, we want to win, but the objective is that, you know what, I'm going to carry 5,000 rupees with me, and if I lose that much amount, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to enjoy myself for an hour or 2 hours. So it is an experience for that person. That's a social gambler for you. As against that, you have compulsive gamblers whose objective is to win. And that's the reason they go to a casino, and they go very regularly. And their objective is that the house, which is the casino, always has a probabilistic advantage over you. So they try and find ways that they can put that advantage to their own favor. There are certain games where it can be done. And some of this can be done by creating frauds and even you commit cheating and things like that. So these are the two categories. The live gaming that happens in Goa is as good or as bad as any other casino in the world. There's no difference. You get the same experience, same vibe, the same thrill when you're on the casino floor. But I have been to a casino which I call the casino only for compulsive gamblers. That was in Cairo. It was not a casino meant for social gamblers, so to speak of. One, the tone and tenor is very serious. I think everybody is very well dressed, and the stakes on the tables are very high. You don't want a person riffraff to come inside. I mean, in Vegas, at the biggest casino in the world, you can play slot machine at $1 a game. It doesn't matter. Even if you have $100, they make you feel inclusive. But in the Cairo, in the casino I went, I think if I sat there for 1 hour, I would have lost or won $10,000. So I felt very out of place. It was not for me. And I walked out of that casino, very frankly, because I realized that the money I had in my pocket, I would hardly sit for 2 minutes. And that is not the experience I was seeking. So it was a casino for somebody who is serious with big money who wants to come and play. So these are basically the two broad distinctions. I don't think there's a distinction per se between international casinos and the one that you see in Goa. They're as good or as bad. Yeah.
We can now open the house to questions.
Hello, Anurag. Glad to hear your very immaculate interview. Not a word wrong here and there. So, just wanted to ask whether you could ever diverge from the topics which you normally specialize in. Let's say, would you ever write fantasy or science fiction, or maybe closer to home with people when you interact? Maybe something called magical realism, which involves people but has some element of fantasy in that. Would you be able to do that ever, or do you really want to do it?
Interesting. So, I am part of a writers group in Singapore, and I am a mentor to a girl who writes exceptional sci-fi. And I think it is not very different per se. Have I written about Superman ever? I haven't. But the fact is that I want to believe that most of the characters in my novel are Superman in their own right. In terms of exaggerations, if you exaggerate to the next level, I think you can write a sci-fi. But that is not something that appeals to me. Actually, my creative bent of mind, it is not able to see that world, to be fair. I get very intrigued and I get very excited when I'm with my mentee and her ideas. They are mind-blowing to me because I have not been able to see them for myself. I think I am very happy writing about the mundane people around me, and you will be surprised to know that they are not that mundane as they're made out to be. That's what I've come to realize in my life as a writer. You know, we live a 9 to 6 life, but people really want to know what happens from 6 to 9. And that is where I delve in all my novels. I write about underbellies. you will not know it might be a person in your community next door who has a very different alternate life. And that is the life that I'm interested in.
Thanks Anurag for a wonderful session. I have actually two questions which are probably an extension of each other, or at least the one is an extension of the other. That you have pursued writing books as well as screenwriting. So when you are writing a book, how much pressure do you feel, or how much do you have to fight with the urge to not write for a future adaptation, that you are as a writer trying to be true to the book as it is and not actually visualizing it on screen, if at all you do that? And B, a lot of writers aren't happy with their adaptations, like for example Frank Herbert wasn't really happy with how David Lynch portrayed Dune, and even our own Indian Mr. Vikas Swarup, he was in Jaipur a few months back, and he said that I would want to be involved in projects now henceforth where if my book is being adapted, I would want to be there till the stage of production and script writing. So how do you reconcile these two aspects?
Script writing is a very different market as compared to writing novels. In 120 pages, you have to complete the script. So in this perspective, that's hardly 25,000 words. It's 1 hour 45 minutes, a movie. If it's a television series, it's 22 minutes. The rest is advertisement. You have 5 or 6 episodes for a limited series, and so on. I found that the problem we writers face is that we love creating our world, and we spend a lot of time in creating that world. And we also spend a lot of time in creating the background of our characters. Very frankly, almost 2/3 of the novel is the world and the characters that we created, and 1/3 is the plot, right? Whereas the moment you go into screenwriting, they are interested in 1/3 bit, which is the plot. And of course the characters are important, but they give a backstory in 1 minute, what you have written in pages and pages. And they're not really interested in the world that you created. So it's a very different ballgame. Script writing is all action oriented. I will keep describing the word. You give it to somebody, probably the first 50, 60, 75 pages, he will do it in 5 minutes on a screen. So it's a very, very different market. So that's why I think writers, naturally, they feel that they've been shortchanged when they see the end product on television. But I think somewhere the realization has to come that that market is very different. You tell me if you're watching a television series, and the first 15 minutes is just going on and on about the world, you'll probably switch it off and change it to some other channel. So you lost the audience. So the right to action has to be very fast when it's a screenwriting. That's not the case in a novel. We get a lot of liberty when we're writing a novel. It's not there in screenwriting. So they are very different, and probably that's the reason, like when I research a topic, I want to put it all in, and Mitali will tell you that's not the right thing to do, because it becomes very verbose. We are taught that you put in things in the novel only if it furthers the plot, if it moves the plot. But when I'm researching, I want to write everything down that I researched. It's in me, right? And then my editor throws it out and I don't like it. It's the same thing. A perfectly edited novel, when it goes for screen adaptation, a lot of things is just thrown out because it can't be put there. There's a time constraint there. So the scriptwriter has a very difficult job to actually adapt a novel. And in that, a lot of things are cut, which the writer is obviously very sensitive about, because it's very close to him. Maybe a character, maybe the world he's created, maybe an action point, which in screenwriting they don't think it's relevant, and they'll cut it out and then they'll come out with something. So yes, books. I think I have never heard somebody telling me that they saw a movie which was better than the book. Have you ever done that? I don't think so. They can't do that because it's very restrictive in terms of time, in terms of money, what they're trying to do. I mean, some of the best, I think, one of the best book adaptation is your Lord of the Rings series, the first 3. It was done very, very well. But generally speaking, you will find that a lot of ends are cut. because that's the way it is. It's too expensive to keep everything there. And that's probably the reason why writers are not happy with the way the adaptation happens. Let me tell you, I'll be very happy to adapt it. Yeah. So.
I must compliment both of you for bringing out him as an author and your depth in what you have studied in the books and his writing. Evidently, from the command of the language that you have and the way you tell the story, your genes are there. Your parents and grandparents have contributed to being what the person you are, the kind of storyteller you are. But there's one aspect of your life which you have not delved in your conversation here, and that is your schooling, your teachers, your command of the language, or the way you speak, the way you present, often enough arises from a much earlier age when you were even not aware that you would be the person you are today.
Yes, absolutely.
I would like you to tell me more about who built you into the person you are today.
Right. Thank you for that question. Yes. So I have done my schooling in Delhi at Modern School by Kamaru. I'm a modernite. So are all my siblings. And yeah, I mean, we were taught English from nursery. So it comes to me. But I do not have an English literature background. I did a science with economics in my class 12th, and then I went and did an economic honors. And my bachelor's undergrad, I actually tried to clear my CA exams, which I did not. And then I did an MBA from ISB. So strictly speaking, I don't come from a so to speak English background. My father is a government servant, so yes, we do speak a lot of English at home. But my mother is a housemaker, and we do converse with her in Hindi. And in Bhojpuri, my mother is from Bihar. So yeah. So I think the strength in my novels is the plot and the characters, and the strength in my novel is language which is for the masses. I don't write critically acclaimed writing. I don't portray myself to be that writer. I think I need a lot more depth. I think that depth is now coming in my characters, and that's the reason I was mentioning earlier to Tusharika that I would like to evaluate that side of me going forward and probably move away from the thriller genre, which I have been writing, because thriller genre is basically on the back of the plot, and I want to move away from that. That comes very naturally and easily to me. And maybe push myself and see how far I can take my writing when it is not plot oriented, but it is oriented based on characters. So that's the future for me.
I have a supplementary question.
Yes, sir.
Since you've written 3 books with thrillers,
Yes, sir.
how difficult is it to find the twist in the tale?
Yes. So, twist in the trail, it comes naturally to me, frankly. But when I'm writing the final twist, which is what gives you that aha effect when you finish the novel, the first 6-8 ideas that come to me, I throw them out of the window. It's when you're discussing the 9th or the 10th idea or the 11th idea with a group of people who are avid readers, and they are not saying, oh, this is like, if this happens, boss, I would have never thought that this would happen, right? Those are the ideas that you want to pursue, and we pursue those kind of ideas. In the Goa Gambit, I knew from the very beginning what was going to happen in the end. Unfortunately, part of that creative writing course I did, the 3-act structure, most of the time when I start writing a thriller, I already know the end. When you know the end, everything becomes easy. And I have known the end in The Last Street, and I have known the end in the Goa Gambit before I began writing it. In Kalayug, which was written before I did that course, I did not know the ending, and I was actually chasing 5 characters who were running in their own directions. And the story in Kalayug, if you read it, vis-a-vis the other 2 later which have been written, you will find that the plot is a little loose. It's not that tight, because I didn't know the ending, frankly. And at the nth moment, when the book was with the editor, the ending was changed. That would have never happened in the second and the third novel that I've written. They were a very clear ending in mind, and then the entire book proceeds towards that ending. You know the characters, and you know how the characters will end and their arcs will end because you know the ending. But in my first novel, that was not the case. So it comes to me naturally, sir. And I have in my circle of friends a couple of people who are like, who done it. Their whole job is to read novels, and when they've read the first 50 pages, they bet with each other what the ending will be. And if I can surpass them, then I've done a good job. And let me tell you, these guys are very good. Most of the times they are able to catch where you're heading. So for me, they are the test. If I can pass that, then it's an ending which almost 99% of the readers will not be able to catch. And at the same time, you don't want to leave the readers with a feeling that he misdirected me when he was writing his novel, because that's cheating. So I will give you some hints in the novel which a regular person will not be able to catch, but a person who is reading the novel with the objective of trying to figure out the ending before he finishes it might be able to catch it. So yeah, that's how they write.
We've got one question.
Thanks for the interesting session. So you have been unfortunate as far as movies or OTT platforms are concerned. So why not take plunge, produce one of your own, based on your own novel?
Yes, so it's a very different field. I don't know, I won't have much experience. Maybe if something like that is done, then I will probably finance basically a production company to do it for me than me doing it myself. It's a different ballgame. They look similar in terms of creative mindset, but let me tell you, they're very, very different. They're very different. I have a lot of appreciation for script writers because I know they are not novelists. And likewise, they have a lot of appreciation for novelists. They are different words. And as they say, you have to pay a price to be recognized in every industry. I think in the publishing field now, I have a lot of confidence that when I begin writing a novel, I know it will be published. That confidence has come. But in the movie industry, I am nobody. And I have to pay that price. And I am paying that price, that struggle. And someday, in the future, hopefully, I will cross a threshold where something will work for me. And you will see one of these novels being actually converted into a movie and come out. So I am in that process. But there are no shortcuts in this. Neither are there any shortcuts when I decided to become a writer, and I don't think there are any shortcuts in the movie industry either. And the competition is phenomenal. It's the same, right? I mean, if there are 10,000 fiction writers today in India, they all want that OTT platform. And what, you have like 6, 8, 10 of them come out in a year. So just imagine the competition we are dealing with. So that's a reality. I might be good, but then there are others who are better. And not only that, I think it's also a function of who saw your book. So hopefully the right person reads it someday and he likes it and gives you a call, and then it converts into something which you all can appreciate. So yeah, I'm hopeful.
Destiny wills.
Yes.
So
it was a very interesting talk, and I was very much attracted to the idea of a writer's forum where writers can, talk about various books and try to properly in the thrillers what the ending would turn out to be. I think that would be a very interesting way of discussing books. But one question that I would like to ask you was, usually the writer is influenced by different authors. So what kind of authors or what authors have been influenced in your writing?
Yeah, so yes, I have I think in class 7th when I read my first James Hadley Chase. It was given to my mom and dad. Very fast thrillers. They used to have a very interesting cover, and that got me attracted to it. But the stories were better than the cover. And then I started reading a lot of Jeffrey Archer and Frederick Forsyth. And I'm very pleased that, I think a month and a half back at W.H. Smith at the airport, my book was the book of the month, and the number one on charts was the Jeffrey Archer. So I've come a long way from that, from idealizing him and reading him when I was a young child, and to actually competing with him today in the market. Of course, he's still number one, and I'm no longer, so that's the difference. They last much longer. They have a lot of following and a lot of fan base across age groups, which keeps them going. So, yeah.
One last question.
Hi, Anurag and Tusharika. That was an excellent session. Thanks for it. I think it kept us all on the edge, like most of your novels probably. I haven't read them, but extremely compelled to read The Goa Gambit. My sister-in-law is also in Singapore. She's an investment banker. She's been there for like a good 15, 16 years now. So, like you said, you have a writer's block, you switch off for a couple of weeks, but you can't do that as an investment banker. So, how do you, I've seen her when she visits Jaipur, she's on a laptop from like 7 in the morning till 4:30, whatever the working office hours are. So how do you, and I'm assuming since you said a lot of your novels are research based, so you need to probably travel to India and do all your scouting around and all of that. So how do you balance this whole investment banking with your writing? And it's two different mindsets altogether. One is where you're creating a plot, and one is where the plot already exists. You have to figure out which way to tread. So that's a difficult balance in my opinion. So how do you manage that?
So, well, the first thing I've done is that I no longer manage money for anyone else, because I don't think I'll be true to them. My mind is split. I used to manage money 15 years back, professionally for people. I had a license here, salary license. I used to run a PMS scheme then. And I don't do it anymore. It's proprietary. I'm responsible for it. It's my own money. So that's the first thing. So I'm not answerable to anyone else. Having said that, I have a very interesting thing. I try. The problem is when you're doing something for your own, whether you're writing or whether you're managing your own money, right? It's very difficult to benchmark yourself. How do you know you've done well? And that's a question that will plague anyone who's self-employed. So my idea is very simple. I try and put 3 tick marks every day, and then I call it a good day. And the 3 tick marks are for my physical body if I have done something. So I go to a gym at least thrice a week, and I try and walk 10,000 steps every day. So that's the first tick mark. The second is for my mental body, what have I done? Did I write that day? Have I done my 500 words? That's a quantifiable target. So that's the second tick mark. And the third tick mark is a little more difficult, which is, did I make money today? Which is dependent on trading. Yeah. So I try and do all 3. It keeps me going. It keeps me excited and keeps me running. And frankly, there are times when I have a writer's block, so I can't write. So then I'm very happy if I can tick mark 2 of them. And there are times when the markets are also bad, and the only tick mark I can do is the walking I do. That day I try and walk 15,000 steps to make up for the fact that the other 2 tick marks I haven't done. So this is how I split it. I'm not one of those traders who has large day-to-day positions open in the market, so I don't have to watch it that closely. Having said that, I do spend at least 2 hours sitting in front of a terminal every day. And that's the reason I was telling you, my writing time is 7 to 12. The market runs from 12 to 6, the Indian market, right? So that time is still free for me to do what I do. And I think it helps that I'm able to switch on and switch off. It keeps me going. It's important to come out of that world as well. These two are good sets. And as anyone will tell you, writing is for passion. It's not a very paying profession, unfortunately. So the market just ensures that I pay my bills from there and I continue writing. So yeah, that's a healthy mix for me.
The session together. I'm going to request Mr. D.P. Agarwal to please come up and present the mementos to Anurag and Tusharika.
से आपने तुषारिका ये तारीफ इसलिए संभव कि आपने इतनी अच्छी बात
Thank you. Anurag is available to sign your book, so one copy of the book per family. Just come up and get it signed. And thank you so much. That was actually so refreshing. Thank you.
Thank you.